Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, we heard 10 hours of, well, actually, I have been on all three committees, all three medical marijuana bills, so I've heard it all. And I heard 10 hours one night in local government, and one of the biggest issues was the access and the cost to the patient. Now, if they are protected by the Constitution, then let them be protected. And one of the issues that, that came up was the issue of this NIMBY, that nobody really wants to have these dispensaries except for Denver. So what we're going to have are all of the dispensaries in Denver, and every other town doesn't have them. So the question is, what about those people in the rural areas? How are they going to get access if their little town doesn't have anything for them, and they have to try to get to a place where they can, drive 120 miles? If you do not have these accessible, then you have also the cost that is being driven up, and then again the patient doesn't get the access. The other for me is looking around. My concern is that you do have towns that will put a ban on these, and then pretty soon you don't have any Amendment 20, and we all voted, not we all voted, but 5% voted for this amendment. It's in the Constitution. I ask for an aye vote.
Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Members, local control is an important value, and it guides a lot of our thinking and voting down here. However, here's the problem with suggesting that local control answers this issue and argues against Senator Carroll's amendment. There are other things that are set forth in the Constitution and have to be protected. In other words, there are things against which we balance local control. Now, the way this bill is drafted, it says you can limit the time, place, and manner of operating dispensaries up to and including not allowing them, provides theoretically for the basis to eliminate all production and distribution or all dispensaries from Colorado. Now, you might think that's only a theoretical threat, but even the theoretical threat, if formalized in the law, violates Amendment 20. Consider this, members, as an analogy. Consider the First Amendment and campuses and towns and others. They can create sort of, and even this is dubious, but it's been accepted that they can, in regulating the time, place, and manner of speech and protests, they can create speech zones and quiet zones. Well, if they were allowed, if we expressly gave local governments permission to create speech zones that, or no speech zones that could stretch up to and including all of the entire city limits, we would be authorizing them to prohibit First Amendment activity within the city. Everyone recognizes how absurd that would be. Well, if we can't authorize local governments to ban speech because of the theoretical threat to the First Amendment, neither can we authorize local governments to ban the only realistic model for producing, distributing, and supplying this product to the people who need it under the policy of Amendment 20. I support Senator Carroll's amendment.
Senator Kopp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I'm going to ask for a no vote, colleagues. The Constitution does not authorize distribution, and that's what these centers are. They are centers of distribution, and that's not what the Constitution did. So we should allow, if we're going to move this bill forward, the cities to have a full range of options, and they can be perfectly consistent with the spirit of Amendment 20. Ask for a no vote.
The question is Senator Carroll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One, to be clear that the Constitutional Amendment 20 does include the word dispense on it. The more important part on Amendment 141 is no one who has come up here to speak against this amendment can tell me where in this language that is expressly granting this right on medical marijuana where we are authorizing anyone to do a ban. It's not authorized. So to the extent we do it or attempt to do it, I think realistically it can and will be stricken down legally. So this is a chance to fix that. I think the other point that Senator Cadman was making is we may all remember Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative, right? It's your universal here. If one city can do it, all cities can do it. You have no more Amendment 20. And Amendment 20 doesn't authorize that. So just think about the consequences of that. You carry it on the way out. You have essentially created the process where, ignoring the plain language of what's in the Constitution, if all did what one did, there is no more Amendment 20. I ask for an aye vote on L0141.
Senator Johnston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would respectfully ask for a no vote on this amendment. I agree with Senator Kopp that what's clear in the constitutional language is what is required by Amendment 20 is that people have access to medical marijuana if they were found to have debilitating or chronic medical illnesses. Access to medical marijuana, and that marijuana can be dispensed to them. There is nothing in any part of the language that requires that there be a dispensary or a dispensary model by which they access that. This amendment not passing would change nothing about about someone's ability to access that constitutional right. It would be no different than saying that by cities doing regulations on big box stores versus other types of stores as ways to buy books would mean some sort of First Amendment infringement that Senator Mitchell is describing. All we're saying here is that cities have the ability to regulate how they choose for this to be dispensed with. There is no change to the dispensing, which is the key word that Senator Carroll identified in the statute. It does, in fact, require that it can be dispensed. It can be dispensed by a caregiver, as the Constitution originally anticipated. And so I think this is a reasonable ability for towns and cities and counties to have control over their own regulations on how this is distributed. I think it's fair. I'd ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Do my ears deceive me? Did I hear the Yale scholar argue that the constitutional provision authorizes that a patient be dispensed marijuana, but does not authorize that someone actually dispense it? Does it suggest that there is a need for medical marijuana, but governments at all levels can regulate and even prohibit the only realistic model for producing and providing that marijuana? If the provision means anything, it means that the product can be supplied as well as consumed. Perhaps the drafters weren't foresightful enough to contemplate what it would take realistically to provide the product, but stomping the supply out of existence is completely unfaithful to the constitutional policy of allowing its dispensing to patients. Vote yes on this amendment.
Question is, okay, the question is the adoption of Amendment 141. Division has been requested. Those who are not eligible to vote, please, everyone in the chamber, please be seated. And those in favor, please rise.
Yeah, but it's always, you're always.
Okay. Please be seated. Those opposed, please rise. Chair is not in doubt. The amendment fails. Senator Morse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise report, beg leave to sit again at 1:30. Members, committees upon adjournment are going to meet here in just a few minutes. This afternoon's committees will have to be pushed back to upon this afternoon's adjournment when we're done with this bill. So again, Madam Chair, I move that the committee rise, report progress, beg leave to sit again at 1:30.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. The committee will rise to report progress and sit again at 1:30. I'm going to leave that here. That's the next one. Have something to read on here. I don't have to see. I'll take this back. Okay. Yeah.
Senate will come back to order. Announcements.